Welcome back to another episode of Survival Worldwide on Reality Pop. I'm sitting here sadly with the latest evicted castaway from Survivor South Africa, the 11th evicted castaway for this season. Renier, I saw your Ponderosa video prior to coming into this interview, and I could just see how heartbroken you were at the end of the season to be voted out. And I was heartbroken for you because I'm a massive fan myself, and I was kind of living through you being in the season, playing as one of the big fans to go on the show, someone that's watched over 50 seasons of the show. Tell us, what was it like to finally get to play this game that you've watched for such a long time?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I appreciate your fandom so much. I think the game is built around guys like you who does exactly what you're doing, promoting the game for the big fans out there. So just thanks for your love for the game. Asking me to explain the game, I don't think I have the English, Afrikaans, Latin, Zulu, or Xhosa, or Spanish vocabulary to tell you exactly how this game is. For me, there's something a little bit different. It's not just I've played the game, and the game requires X, Y, and Z from you, or the game is fun because of this or terrible because of that. I can't stop there. I need to go back 20 years and tell you, Chris, when I watched Survivor the first time in our TV room on the couch with my dad to my right-hand side, watching Survivor Borneo, thereafter seeing how Scoopin falls in the fire in the next season, and you just go through them, Borneo, Africa, Outback, from all the way to the 40th season, going over to Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. Answering your question, what it means for me to play the game starts there, and it is an incredible love for the game, which is brewed over the years, and finally getting to play. I remember one of my best moments in the entire game was first challenge, rocking up to the challenge, and Nico says, "Come on in, guys," and I almost lose it, and I'm like, he's speaking to me. This guy said, "Come on in, guys," and he is speaking to me. This guy. Like, I've heard it 1,000 times, and this time was for me. So it was absolutely incredible. And there's hardship and tough times and cold and wet and tired. And yeah, all that it sucks. It honestly sucks. I'm not playing it down. But nothing can express to you how grateful I am for the opportunity to put it will be the proverbial cherry on top of my 20-year Survivor cake.
No, 100%. I mean, you did so much better than what most people expect a super fan to do when they go on the show, because we all know the Jacob Durhams and the people that go out there, and Dino to a certain degree, he had a lot of trouble as a super fan out there on the show as well. And you did extremely well. And one of the things that really impressed me was when I spoke to Dino in his exit interview, and I asked him, were you aware that Reneer was such a big fan of the show? He said he had absolutely no idea, which speaks testament to, of how you played the game. Which previous players of Survivor sort of inspired your gameplay? I'm sure you took little bits and pieces from different players coming into the season. Who did you try and model your game on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I modeled on anyone specifically, like this is my guy, but there were bits and pieces I took from everyone, and I need to credit my wife a lot here. Like, my wife I often joke and say there's no bigger Survivor fan than me. Oh no, wait, there's my wife. And she's extremely good with analyzing players. And I watched Survivor before we got married without her, followed everything, and then we got married and we started at season 1 again, and we went through everything. And watching it with her, she brings an extremely analytical mind to it, saying, okay, so what this person does well is X, Y, Z, but what that person could have done better is this, this, and this. What is important, if you get to a final tribal council and those people are on the jury, you speak like Cochrane. Cochrane is good there. But if you get to a final tribal council where these people are on the jury, although Hans didn't win, this is how you speak. Rosland's speech would have worked there. And she was very good with pointing out those little things. And I could take a little bit. I always feel there's a little bit of Adam Klein in me. There's a little bit of a Nick Idanza in me, and there's a little bit of Poverty Shallow in me. And then people have told me Jeremy Collins as well. So maybe if you can put Jeremy's abs and Poverty's, let's not go there.
Social game.
Social game, yes, social game. And combine those 4 people, maybe there's a little bit of a Reneer. But what I do think I brought to the game, which is quite unique, is underplaying my fandom. And that was a deliberate decision beforehand. I distinctly decided no one will know that I'm a fan. And my approach to it is simple. It is certain aspects of yourself in the game of Survivor. It can be compared to, let's say, I have a 1-year-old at home, a 2-year-old at home, who has toys, and he has toys in the box. And whenever he wants to play with the toys, he takes out a toy, he plays with it, and in an ideal world, afterwards he puts it back. That doesn't happen. I put it back. That's not the point. Point is, you have a toy, you play with it, you put it back. Like going to a challenge, for instance. I'm not trying to be physical beast all the time and carry 10 logs of firewood. I'm chilled, laid back, but when I get to a challenge and I need to swim against chappies, then I'm going to bring out the best physical part in me. My physical toy is going to come out. After the challenge, I put it back in. But something like being an ultimate fan and voicing that and showing people how well you know the game, how well you understand strategy, that is not your normal toy. That's like a collector's item. That is a Ferrari dyno of 1952 in its original packaging. And the moment you open that packaging, you can never put it back. The collector's item was broken. And that is how I feel about revealing that you are an ultimate fan. If you tell that to someone and this someone feels threatened, the Kierans, the Dinos, the Jasons, Teresos, the other fans, they feel threatened by your knowledge of the game. You cannot unpack, you cannot put that back. That is out there and that will for always count against you. So I told myself, Reneer, the other toys you can take out and put them back, but there's your survivor knowledge you can never put back. So keep that close to your chest as much as you can. And if you get to a point where you need to reveal it in order to gain someone's trust, someone who may be lacking in their own trust, in their own strategy, then it's the time to reveal that, to unveil it. But there's no reason to drop that on the table early on and maybe see it coming to bite you later in the end. And I was completely sold to that strategy and dialed to the end. And I can honestly say, and you can ask 19 castaways about this, I exited the game without anyone knowing I know the game.
No, and I was extremely impressed by that. So one player you didn't mention, and I got shades of this person. I've named this person a few times when it comes to Chappies for his more extrinsic personality that he's got, and the spy shacks and things like that. But Tony underplayed his threat level very well in Winners at War. And I was wondering if there was a little bit of picking up what Tony did there in the way that you dealt with Chappies, because, you know, that scene where you talk to Chappies and you underplay your knowledge of the social game was brilliant. And it really just through shades of, you know, Tony sort of having that psychological warfare with other castaways on the island where people thought he wasn't as threatening as he was due to how he was sort of walking and trying to undermine his own physicality and his smarts about the game, which is crazy to me still to this day that people could have underestimated a player such as that in a game such as Winners at War. But hats off to you for that. Another thing I wanted to ask you here was that you very early on formed an alliance with Amy, which was the Undercover Mafia Alliance. And Marisha, when she came on the exit interview, was quite surprised to hear that you had this alliance, because apparently you had a pretty close alliance with her as well. What other undercover alliances that you have? And more importantly, who was the person you were going to be the most loyal to, or the two people towards the end of the game, if you were to run it all the way till the end?
So the alliance I had with Amy was something incredibly special. It is extremely difficult for me to word what a good alliance partner Amy is. To give you an idea, we don't see each other. We're on different tribes. We come back together and we say, "Yo, Amy, man, I miss you so much. Thanks for being here. We can be so good together." But she can lie to my face if she wants. But what is really testimony of just what a great alliance member Amy is if you go look at it, confessionals after that. I'm really glad that Reneer and I can line up again. I'm really glad that we can connect again. She says something like, he really connected to my heart when he said we're still aligned. And I'm glad we can start planning again. And that says something about Amy. It says that it's not a one-directional relationship. This was something where we both committed to on day 2 on this, 100%. And we would have stuck guns with each other right up until the end. And a lot of kudos to her. It was great to be able to not see each other for so long and then just reconnect. It's a pity, maybe some dramatic poetry, that we then connected again, forced connected again via Tied Destinies and got voted out together. How bad is that? But Amy is an incredible person to be aligned with. But I must also say that none of the relationships which I did make in the game was null and void. Like, there was times where Nicole and I were really close, and Marisha and I were really close. Sean and I were really close. Smash and I were really close. Kieran and I, Tyson and I, we all had our moments. So there was nothing. I would never say, just like this guy, just lured him in order to dispose of him later. It was times where we all really had good proper chats, and I would have loved for someone like Dino or Torizo to have hung around longer as well.
Yeah, so on that note, how much of a disadvantage do you think it was to get your game that you didn't go to tribal councils a bit more often than what you did? Because obviously you guys dominated the tribal part of it and won most of the immunities. And in hindsight, do you think that it would have been a better move to potentially throw one or two challenges when you had that second swap tribe with a bunch of your tribe members in the minority in that specific tribe?
Clever question. Such a question can only come from a proper fan. I like that you ask it. So there's two things which happens when going to tribal. One is, like you correctly say, there are many things that happen. Two specific things which you should take note of. One is, like you correctly say, the confirmations of word get done. Like if I say I'm going to vote with you now, I need to prove it. But what also happens is the breaking of trust also happens. So on the one side, it might have helped us to be able to go to a tribal or two to just see that we are all indeed aligned. But what people don't necessarily always remember is there's a specific lines get drawn, dash lines become solid lines. And in some cases, that's a good thing because you see who's on your side of the solid line. But on some occasions, it happens that the damage which is done is just to such an extent that it's irreparable. Well, very close to irreparable. And sending a tribe to tribal council a couple of times. Look at Zamba 2.0. They were nowhere. Zamba 2.0 would not have recovered if there was not a tribe swap. They were going under. And that is also what tribal council does. So I think it will be a bold move to say, oh, I wish we went to tribal council a little bit more. But what I can definitely confirm is that between the two extremes of tribal council breaks and ruins your tribe, and the other side of tribal council confirms what you do have. It would have been nice if we had the latter, but there's no guarantee. It might have been the former, and then we would have been much worse off than we were now anyway.
No, 100%. And that's why I was wondering, especially after that second swap, you, as a fan, you would have thought merge must be pretty close because normally the second swap means it's like a couple of voting rounds before you go into that specific merge. But I fully appreciate it. Out of curiosity's sake, if you were to go to tribal council prior to that second swap, so when Inesu, Tyson, and Kiran was still all in your tribe, who would have been the next person on the chopping block?
So that's to answer this question, I will have to rewind and put Reneer from then in the game. Because that definitely changes as the time forwards. So to give you a full circle answer, yeah, Kieran and I were quite well aligned, and we were getting quite close. And then Tyson and I as well. There's a beautiful scene of Tyson and I, like, this sounds bad, slaughtering the chicken together, where we just connect quite a bit. And yeah, so I think at that point, although I grew to love Inesu to bits after that time, I think at that time it would unfortunately have been Inesu on the chopping block. But also remember that she was at Immunity Island at that point when Torizo was in the Torizo vote. So that made it a little bit different. But nonetheless, I think it would have been Inesu had we been forced into making a decision.
Fair enough. Now, as a big fan of the show, and you've watched it for so many seasons, and you watch so many of the international versions, how much of a shock was this Tide Destinies twist that happened in this episode for you as a fan? Because this was the first time that we saw this happen outside of Survivor France, which is something that I've just heard myself.
Well done. I was wondering if I'm going to drop that bomb on you. Well, freaking done. I'm impressed.
I do my homework, Reneer, you know, if nothing else. But how surprised were you about this twist?
So very surprised. No, wait. Not surprised about the twist. If you want to do yourself a favor, go look at my pre-game interview where I was sitting on the beach. One of the things I say is, I expect this game to bring many unpredicted twists. And I know that every time a twist comes in, I lose a little bit of my control. And I'm going to have control, but these twists might just end up biting me. That's my exact words. What happens? Boom. So an unexpected twist, not surprising at all. It happened. Like, it's there. What did surprise me is the odds of the pairings ending up the way it did. Like, what are the chances? And that surprised me a lot. And even when it happened, I did not figure we were in trouble because Anela and Nicole was definitely on the chopping block way before Amy and I. And so the major concern only came in a little bit later.
I'm going to come back to that specific part of the game just prior to you got voted out, and specifically the conversation yourself and Amy had with Chappies prior to going to that tribal council. But I do want to sort of backtrack a little bit to the merge episode where Chappies was just this massive target going into the merge. What made Chappies the person that you guys felt like you needed to go after at that stage in the game? And why didn't you consider working with Chappies potentially, since he was also a bit of an outcast with his original Vuna tribe members, since he just betrayed them in that first swap period when they were in Zamba 2.0?
Yeah, so first of all, it was important for me to keep Zamba strong. So I had 6 people to look after, one of which being myself. Like I said earlier, Kieran and I were quite tight at that point. So I would have loved to work with Kieran. I grew closer to Ines as well and Tyson as well. So the 3 people I was not close yet to at that point was Santoni, Warta, and Chappies, with Chappies definitely being the closest of the 3. So I wouldn't have mind for a physical player to take a little bit of heat in front of me. But the Chappies did step on a couple of toes in all the tribes which he has been prior to that. And the consensus was definitely to get rid of Chappies. And so for me, and I said this at a different stage as well, I'm not going to compromise my game to try and save Chappies. And it will not be, with all due respect, bad for me if Chappies goes. It'll be good if he can be my meat shield for a little while longer, but it will not be bad for me if he goes. So I'm not going to compromise that, and I'm going to allow it to go. And there was a lot of unity that Chappies should go, even from the Vuna side, where people said, like, I don't like the guy for X, Y, and Z reasons, whether it being just or not, I don't care. Like, if you want to get rid of the guy, my name's not on the chopping block. So therefore, it was okay to allow I felt at that point it was okay to allow the vote to go and not jeopardize my game by thickening up my voice.
Now, in that specific period in the game, we see Tyson coming back from Immunity Island after, you guys all were pretty surprised by that, I assume, because, going into that sort of tribal council, it looked like you were aligned with the Zamba 3.0 members or the original Vuna members. Gets a little bit hard to keep track of who the different people were, but let's say original Vuna, you were pretty aligned with them going into that merge, that Chappies should be the person that goes home. Were you sort of thinking that something is up with Tyson coming home? And how surprised were you that when Tyson actually played that idol and he ended up playing it on Chappies? How surprising was that move for you? Did you expect something going into that tribal council? And talk us through the difficulty in deciding either to play the idol or not play the idol, because you were hesitating there for a second in tribal council when that happened, and it looked like you didn't really want to play the idol.
Yeah, so the moment Tyson came back, I was at a very big unease, and I went to my closest ally on the other side of the fence, being Kieran, and asked him, "Guy, what's up? And why did Tyson come back? What's going on here?" Because I needed that clarity. I needed to know if something has changed. And he said, "No, don't worry, nothing has changed." And I told him, "I'm like, come on, be serious with me. Like, Tyson would not come back if nothing has changed." And then he said, "Tyson is very scared that you guys are going to turn against Warta, and he doesn't want it voted off. So he's going to bequeath his necklace to Warta." And we knew he had a idol in his pocket, so it made sense. He can look after Warta. He voted out Dino earlier, so maybe the other idol is just going on to him for safety. But he also wanted Chappies out. So I completely felt uneasy there and tried to figure out. And my closest ally played a brilliant game to my face. "Don't worry, Reneer, everything's fine." And even in tribal council, so we sat in the tribal council where Carlo got voted off. We ate our hot dogs, and there Chappies was playing it up, and he was going home, and he used the exact words, "Niku, it looks like all the arrows are pointing towards me tonight." That's exactly what he said, and I recognized that from that tribal council when he said this in Mauritius merged tribal council as well. He said again, "Nico, it looks like all the arrows are pointing to me tonight." And I turned to Kieran and I said, "This guy's faking, right?" And Kieran convinced me a second time. He said, "No, this guy's not faking. Don't worry. Everything is going to go according to plan." So a lot of kudos to Kieran there. Twice I felt I picked up on what's going on, and twice he convinced me differently. So yeah, a lot of kudos needs to go there, and that's why I believe it was such a big blindside.
Now, and this is again going to be one of those things that you can only sort of observe if you're watching the TV show, and it's obviously very different when you're in the show and you're inside of the fishbowl, if that makes sense. Chappies didn't look like he had much of a filter on his face when this happened, and he was celebrating prior to Nicole playing the idol. In hindsight, and also just trying to understand your thinking behind this, why didn't you go up to Nico to play the idol, to have a bit of a look and read of the players that you were sitting with? Because I don't think you would have seen Chappies' face from the angle you were sitting at. Was there a reason that you didn't want to go up there to try and play the idol, to read players in the tribal council as you were doing it, to feel out who you should be playing the idol for?
Yeah. So for me, what I've decided before going into any tribal is that, Reneer, if you're going to try and read faces, you're always at the mercy of the face. So it can work in your favor, but if someone, it's equally difficult to call a bluff, a double bluff, and a triple bluff. It's like poker. Like the moment someone starts bluffing, you don't know how many bluffs there are, and it doesn't get any easier. So I told myself, you make a decision based on the knowledge which you have at hand, the library which you have in your bank, and whatever you have in front of you on the table. But if I'm going to try and read faces, and now say 3 faces say this, but 2 faces say that, so that means I'm leaning towards this and towards that. It means I'm allowing myself into a lot of doubt and that's scary terrain. So I'd rather make a call on the information which I have at hand. It can be either correct or incorrect, or I can make a scary call based on trying to read every single player, which can be equally as scary. And the thing which makes this different than playing poker is there are 6 faces which you need to read, and either you read all 6 of them correctly or you're wrong. Where in poker, you just need to determine if one guy's bluffing or not.
Now, Reneer, why do you ultimately believe you lost the game? Where do you think you went wrong in this game? I know you said at the end of it you had no regrets, but I'm sure you would have thought about this as a super fan quite a lot yourself after the game. Where do you think you made the wrong move in this game? Because it looked like for 70% of this game, you were in my top 3. You were number 1 at one point. You were probably always in the top 3 to win the game. It was, for me, it's always been between you, Tyson, and Anesu. Those are the people I think that will win this game. But, where do you think you made the wrong move?
No, thanks, Chris. So if I have to go back and like pinpoint every single thing which I did, I think there are obviously a lot of things which I could have done better and which I would have hoped for. Maybe try to keep the rezo in longer, whatever the case may be. But I honestly feel, and it takes a lot of boldness to say it, but I honestly feel that I was in the perfect position 24 hours before I got voted out. And if it wasn't for a sequence which included tie destinies, me and Amy being connected, and Nicole and Smash being connected, and Nicole and Smash winning, and Nicole taking us on the reward, and subsequently Chappies making a different decision 5 minutes before tribal. If all of that didn't line up, just one of those things needed to go a different direction, and then I was still in the game. And I'm not saying I played a perfect game at all. Like I could have convinced Nicole to give that idol back to Marisha, and there are a lot of things which could have gone different, but I do feel like the game dynamics got the better of me. And I feel like I need that redemption from the game. Like the game dealt me a hard hand. I played whatever I could. I played as hard as I could. I was sitting in a perfect mid-pack position, people in my lines above me and below me, people in the opposing alliance above me and below me. I had a position of power. I had a position of influence. I did not have heat on my back. And then a sequence of very unfortunate events changed all of that.
Now, normally I would ask people if they would play the game again, but I'm not going to insult you like that. I'm sure as a super fan, you will come back and play the game in a heartbeat if you were given the opportunity. So I do want to ask you, going in as a jury member, what are you going to value in a winner? What are you looking for?
As a jury member, there's no sympathy. There's no love. There's no heart. There's no, yes, like I really enjoyed this guy in the game. I will not be true to the Survivor fan in me if I don't vote for the best person. Whether I loved you or hated you playing with you, I will evaluate you on your social game, your strategic game, your physical game. Did you outwit, did you outplay, did you outlast? And my love for the game is ultimately going to trump my support for any individual. And not only will I make sure my vote is cast on that criteria of proper fandom, proper Survivor play, I will also be the influence on Ponderosa with the rest of jury members and make my voice heard continuously, saying, guys, that there's going to be someone left in the game is going to be the face of our season. and that someone needs to be the best someone. I will not settle for an average someone presenting our season. If there are two people in the final, one people have buddies and the other one have played the game. The guy playing the game needs to be the one who is the face of Survivor South Africa Season 8 Immunity Island. And I can promise you, my game hasn't stopped. I'm on the jury, and I'm going to make sure that the best player left in the final is going to win this game.
I'm very excited for this. This season is in the running for me personally as one of the best, if not the best, Survivor South Africa season of all time, and it's definitely up there. So very excited to see how this is going to end as a whole, and that gives me a lot of hope for whoever is going to win this season. Lastly, here, is there anything that you would like to plug? Anything you're working on? I know you had a quick conversation with me in the beginning in regards to something that you're working on over there in South Africa, and we'd be more than willing to have you back on for a bit of a more lengthy discussion in that with that specific thing that you're working on in the future.
Yeah, 100%. Let me just give you a small sneak peek into it because it hasn't officially launched. But so one of the things which happens in Survivor is you lose hope. Like you are hungry, you are tired, and the thing which I held on to many times was that Reneer, keep hoping the fact that this is only temporary. This too shall pass. It can only be maximum 39 days. Like, it's not that bad. And then my wife picked me up from the airport, and we stop at the first robot, and there's a guy begging for food with a sign that says no food, and my heart broke. It just teared me up. I was crying. My wife's like, what's going on? And I just immediately realized that there are people, especially in South Africa at the moment, who feels hopeless. People in dire circumstances with, you might know about all the riots which took place in South Africa at this point. A lot of poverty, a lot of unemployment, and my heart just went out. And I just made a distinct decision to say, Survivor will not only have changed my life, but it will change the life of thousands of people around me who are suffering, who are lacking hope. So I called up a former athlete friend of mine, and the two of us committed to do something which I still believe is so far above what we can do, called the Drakensberg Grand Traverse, a 250-kilometer run, to involve companies to say, guys, get involved with us to raise money for these charities which looks after these people who don't have hope in life, who're suffering on temporary, people who really need that support. Back us in this fundraising run which we're going to have, and we're not going to be average. We're going for the world record on that route, 250-kilometer route in 45 hours. We're attempting the world record on that, and the more people, the more companies we can get involved to say we are supporting bringing hope back to South Africans. The more people we can get there, the more lives we can change. So if there's anyone who wants to contact me afterwards, they can either contact you or they can jump onto my social media, Renier, my website, reneer.com. And let's make contact, let's chat about that, and let's bring hope to the people who are suffering at the moment.
Yeah, I'm more than willing to. I think it's a very important topic, and I'm more than willing to jump on another podcast to talk about it in further length and see if we can get some support globally, because I know there's a lot of global people that are watching this podcast. 70% of our viewers are from the US. There's a lot from Australia. I've had people reach out to me from all walks of the earth, basically. So it's definitely something that's important to talk about. So I look forward to talking to you about that in the future. We will connect afterwards and chat on personal messenger, and then we'll set something up. Reneer, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for being on the show. I look forward to having some further discussions with you, and all the best for the rest of the interviews today.
Chris, I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to chatting to you again. And just not from Survivor player to podcaster, just guy to guy. Thanks for what you're doing. You're incredible. I really appreciate you a lot.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And really, it's been such a pleasure to watch you this season. And we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Survivor Worldwide on Reality Pop. I'm sadly here with the latest evicted castaway for Survivor South Africa Immunity Island. Someone that was voted out. I put in quotation marks because you didn't get any votes on this episode. Did you see this twist coming? Were you a fan of the show prior to it? Because you said you applied on a whim while you were drinking red wine.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd watched Survivor when I was younger, and then there was a whole gap of time where I hadn't watched an episode. And literally I was on holiday with friends. The ad came on TV, like asking people to apply if they want to be a contestant on Survivor. I'd had too much to drink, and I was like to my friends, I can do that. And one of my friends said, okay, do you think you can do that? Okay, so let go. We'll take you to the bedroom, and she filmed the audition video there and then. And then it just sort of snowballed, and then like here I am. So I'm obviously not a super fan like Renier. I mean, Renier is such a super fan. It's crazy, and I didn't even know he was such a super fan until afterwards. So for me, you know, like a twist like Thai Destinies, I had never seen before, but I mean, I had limited experience in, you know, watching Survivor. I mean, I'd obviously watched, especially in preparation, but, you know, something like Thai Destinies, I hadn't seen before, and I only found out subsequently that it is one of the first times that they've ever done something like this. I think it was just in France that they've done it or something like
Yes.
that. Otherwise, it's never been done before. I would say they should probably not do it again.
I understand. Listen, you've earned your stripes going onto the season and actually lasting for as long as you did. And you were someone that I think I may have nominated you 3 times as my player of the week, personally, because I really
You're a sweetheart.
appreciated I really appreciated your gameplay, and you know, you had some tough times to get through being in that minority group after the first swap. Can you talk us through the sort of how you managed to get yourself in with that split Vuna tribe, and specifically the bonds that you needed to form to be able to vote out 3 of those old Vuna members and to survive in there? What was your strategy as someone that didn't really play a lot of the game? You had to learn on the fly, right?
Absolutely, but I think the thing is that, you know, because I think Survivor is so much of a social game. Reneer will tell chappies it's a physical game, but it's so much of a social game, and I think some people like innately know how to play, and some people don't. And you know, I think you see people who are super fans who, you know, the social connection are a struggle for them, and then you see people who've never played before, like someone like who've never been fans before, like someone like Tyson, for example, who isn't a super fan, but his social game is really good. And I think I just sort of figured out early on that how much of a social game it is, and you've got to take the time to see where the social dynamics are and see what's at play and see where you can figure a way into a situation. So for example, with Zamba 2.0, when we had the Vunas in the majority and then the 3 of us, the 3 old Zambas in the minority, we were so lucky that they were as splintered as they were. But we had no idea of that when we came into that tribe. We had no idea there's so many bones of contention there with the Pinty vote and all of that. And it was just lucky that I sort of went to Chappies and was like exploring options with him, because I sensed that there was something, that there was a way in. And then speaking to Santini and her reaction just completely opened the door for us, and we were like, okay, there's a way in here and we can do this. And you know, it was a bit of luck that we just happened to come upon a tribe of people where they were essentially, although they were viewed from the outside as a solid group, they were gunning for each other, and we took advantage of that. So a little bit of like social gameplay that I sort of was picking up on the fly, and also a bit of luck there.
100%. Now, I wanted to ask you about something that happened after that first swap. Obviously, you going to Immunity Island, losing the challenge, and then lying about the fact that you lost the challenge.
I knew you were going to ask me about this.
Talk us through that decision. Why did you lie to your tribe?
I don't know, Chris. You know what the thing was? In Survivor, especially in the early days before Solid Bomb had formed, people are looking for any excuse to just have a name on the chopping block, because as long as it's not them, they're happy. So everyone's super anxious about like pointing the arrow away from them and towards someone else. And I've seen it where, you know, I've seen in past seasons where someone can do something as small as, you know, lose a puzzle for their tribe, and then they, you know, or anything, and then people go, well, we lost because of her, let's vote her out, she's a weak link. And I had lost the first puzzle. I don't know if you remember the first ever challenge that we did. I did the puzzle with Teresa and we lost. So after then, I was feeling super sensitive about, you know, being perceived as perhaps like, you know, I'm not the strongest physical player, and there I am, you know, losing puzzles left, right, and center. So I was super sensitive to that, and I thought, if I come back and I say, it's one thing losing the puzzle and incurring a penalty that only I have to incur, you know, it's another thing having to go back and say, listen, I suck so much at puzzles that I had to do another one, and now they're going to come and they're going to rate, you know, however many things from the camp, and it's all my fault, and I'm obviously a weak player and you should get rid of me. You know, that was the original thinking in my mind. And then when I went there and I told this lie, it just sort of like spiraled out of control, you know, and then it's like, you can't put it back because you've opened Pandora's box. So like, you know, I told them about it, and then everyone's like, okay, now we hide everything in the camp because now we've got this warning, and obviously that means that we need to hide everything. So they go, and I'm busy thinking, oh my God, like this is probably a waste of time. Like they are literally burying it took hours. We hid every single item in our possession in the space of 3-4 hours. So yeah, and then obviously, as you know, it completely backfired with Sean reading out what was actually on the piece of paper that said, you know, the person who went to immunity challenge lost, and therefore we can raid your tribe. I mean, there's no coming back from that. So in retrospect, I should have probably just told the truth, but where would the fun be in that?
No, 100%. Now, I had another question for you. As a lawyer yourself,
Yeah.
Mike Laws was on the show and he was a lawyer, but he didn't tell anybody about this. Were you able to pick up on the little things? Because there's a certain way lawyers talk. I'm quite interested to know how
Yes.
well he heard that when he was out there. And did you tell people that you were a lawyer?
Yeah, it's a funny that because so I lied about being a lawyer. I told people that I was a personal assistant. So I don't think it was a very good lie, because I think people, in the same way you asked, like, could I pick up from the way Mike spoke and presented himself that he was a lawyer? Like 100%. It wasn't even a question. I was like, this guy's lying. He's definitely a lawyer. I think he was looking at me saying exactly the same thing. And especially in that tribal council where he went home, there was quite a bit of back and forth between us. I don't know if they showed it because it wasn't really relevant, but there was quite a bit of back and forth, and it was like two lawyers going at it completely. So once a lawyer, always a lawyer. You can't hide that part of yourself. It's too strong.
Yeah, I've got a lot of lawyer friends. That's why I know. I just know the lawyers speak, you know, so I had to ask that question. Another thing I wanted to ask you, at that first swap, you had the potential to choose to work with Warda and Carla a bit further in the game instead of going back to Santoni and Chappies. Why did you decide to ultimately move away from working with Carla and Warda in the game? Because it did look like at a certain point in the game, Carla wanted to work with you and she felt pretty comfortable with you. What was the reason that sort of swayed you the other way?
So Carla, I really like Carla. I really enjoyed her. We bonded quite a lot during our time in Number 2.0. And I was quite keen to work with Carla. Like, I would have been happy to work with her. But unfortunately, the relationship that she had with Tyson and Kieran back at that time they were Vuna, the way that she would talk, her and Wada, it was very clear that those bonds were still very tight. And I mean, if you even see it in her tribal council where she goes home, that double tribal council where they're watching us, and she's like, hi guys, hi, you know, like, and obviously we were all doing that with our ex, you know, alliance members, but it was just, it was too apparent to us that if we kept her as in an alliance and then ended up back with Tyson and Kieran and them, there's a very good chance that she would turn against us. And she would probably say that, I'm not sure. But she was very tight, and so was Wider. So it was to take Santini and Chappies, who were on the outs with that whole tribe, basically, just seemed like the wiser choice at the time.
So on that note, you get to merge and you guys target Chappies. Why? Because to us as viewers, it looked like Chappies was completely on the outs with original Vuna, and you guys kind of drove him back to working with Vuna. Why didn't you try to work with him instead?
With Chappies?
Yes.
You know what? I think there's so many layers to the story. It's like an onion. Everyone knows that post-merge, the physical threats are usually the first to go, the big challenge beast, because, for obvious reasons, you don't want them to try and win all the challenges and then you can't get rid of them. So we were looking at who would be an easy vote post-merge, some that everyone couldn't get on board with, and then after that, after we did first vote and like everyone's now settled and we're getting used to this new dynamic that we've got going on, then we start to look at like the dynamics and who's going to stick with who and who's going to work with who. Particularly from my point of view, at that stage, I wasn't looking strictly number OGs versus Vuna OGs. I was looking, and a few of us I think were looking at a more dynamic gameplay. But going for Chappies, ironically, sort of created that line in the sand. And obviously, there were other things that were said, like Mauricio saying to Santini, we'll keep you for a few more votes, which didn't help it. So, Chappies just seemed like the easy move.
And just to interrupt your train of thought there, sorry about that. Warda and Chappies, they had a very contentious relationship in that first swap tribe. Did you think that there was just no way that Warda would work with Chappies based on that relationship?
Exactly. We really felt, and that was going to be my next point. It was like, he's a challenge beast. We really feel like he had the connections with any of the Vuna members. I mean, when we used to speak to them, they'd say, like, we don't like Chappies. We want him out. Like, we don't like him as a guy, as a human being or whatever, And kudos to them, whether they did that on purpose to convince us and deceive us, or whether that's how they really felt that this was the right decision to work with him anyway, I don't know. But he just seemed so on the outs that it was like, okay, easy vote, makes sense. And then obviously we felt like Santini would be a bit weaker in her position. Someone like Anesu would be a little bit weaker in her position. And then, it made sense for us to do that. But we didn't realize that, and that was our big mistake, was that Vuna OGs would put their differences aside and work together.
Now, there's so much more I want to ask you about Vuna 2.0, and that's why I hope we can at some point have a bit of a deeper dive, because I feel like Vuna 2.0 had a really big play even after the merge with the relationship you had specifically with Vuna 2.0 when you went into merge, because Reneer and some of the other people in your alliance didn't have those relationships. One of those relationships were with Santoni, and it seemed like you were trying to work with Santoni very badly, but you guys could just never get on the same page. What do you think turned Santoni against you ultimately in the game towards the end?
Chris, it's such a good question, and it's really a question that I've asked myself multiple times, because that was eventually my downfall, or Renier's and my downfall was we couldn't turn Santoni. And I think, Santoni and I had a real friendship in the game, a genuine friendship. We worked together really well in Zaba 2.0, as you said. When it was Sean, Anela, and I, and then obviously Santini and Chappies and Paul, that really cemented thing. And that's why going into merge, I felt as though, okay, Santini's with me. We have a friendship. We have an understanding. She's with me. We're good. But Santini is a very complex character, and that's what makes her so amazing to watch. She is so complex. Like, it's not straightforward with her. And what I genuinely believe was my downfall with her, turned her against me in the end, was she always wanted to feel part of an alliance, like a real part of an alliance. Like, I'm a core cog in this wheel. And that's what was eventually, that turned her against Carla and Wada and them. And that's when she flips, is when she's feeling appreciated, you know, not an integral part of an alliance. And my big mistake post-merge was to not check on her and make sure she felt included and part of what's going on. And she wasn't. She was put out on the peripheral. Then I thought, okay, I can turn this around. I've made a mistake with her. I can bring her back to me. And we had those conversations that you saw in the last episode where I said, you know, you've screwed me. Can we please sort out? And but I think at that point she'd been so traumatized, and this is completely like guessing, but I think that she'd been so traumatized by being a flip-flopper, and then finally it caught up to her, and Sean went crazy at her, I went crazy at her. Like, it finally, all that flip-flopping caught up to her, and she was like, I'm done. I'm not flip-flopping anymore. Like, I can't do this. I can't take this heat from these people. I'm going to stick to this product I made. I'm going to stick to these people. Come hell or high water, this is how I'm going to play the game now, because I can't deal with this. And that's genuinely why I feel like she stayed where she stayed. I might be completely wrong. And I'd love to hear her thoughts on it when the time comes. But yeah, very complex character to play with, and very frustrating when you can't convince her to do what you want.
Yes, especially when we found out that Chappies, you guys had Chappies until Santoni went back to Chappies to say, no, we're not flipping over to Reneer and Amy's side to try and keep you guys in the game. So I do agree. I think from me sitting on the outside, you know, obviously we get to see a bit more of a view, even though we don't see everything. It looked like that relationship at the end came back to bite you in the butt. But, you know, again, looking at it, you know, you go into the game here and you get a twist that comes up that you couldn't prepare for. Do you think you had runway left in the game? And what would have been your strategy if Reneer or someone else were voted out at this point? Who would you have tried to work with at this point to try and get yourself back in the game? What relationships that you have left in the game that you think could have potentially helped you get further in it if you weren't voted out with Reneer in this spot?
Yeah, so that's obviously what I was thinking of constantly. Like, I just wanted the OG Bruno, OG Zampa lines to disappear. I just wanted us to like get over it. Like, yes, we were once in and that's gone. Let's play now this individual game. And after Sean left, and I sort of felt like, okay, they want Sean out. I understand. I get it. Let's not be too attached to, okay, we've lost a Zamba lines member. Let's think of now how we can play this going forward. And I assumed that we would potentially lose another Zamba member, or maybe more than one. But from my conversation with Anthony, she said to me, she was like, I will not write your name down. I will not vote you out. I will be on your side. I could see even in this episode, she was still on my side until Ty Destinies and Nicole winning the immunity challenge, and then the numbers just not making sense to keep us in. If that Ty Destinies hadn't happened and the chips didn't fall the way they fell, I do believe that Santini would have continued with me, and I believe that Anesu would have played with me as well, because Anesu was ready to do it. She was ready for a Kieran Tyson blindside, and that was on the cards until Ty Destinies. I think Kieran, Tyson and Wada I didn't really have the relationships with, and I don't know if I could have forged those relationships. I think it might have been too late there. But definitely Santini, Chappies, and Anesu were definitely alliance options for me moving forward. And yeah, could have, should have, would have, but I think it could have been good.
So on the bright side, you're going to go down in the record books for Survivor South Africa as a person who left the game without being voted out. So I think years and years to come, hopefully Survivor South Africa season 20, is out there one day. People will remember you as someone that got out of the game without being voted out. So I've got a feeling personally that you're going to get called for All Stars. It's going to happen because, you've got to bring the person back that was never voted out, right? So
Chris,
would you do it again?
Yes,
Would you do it again after everything that you've gone through and not being able to brush your hair for all that time when you were out on the island? Would you put yourself through it again?
Absolutely. The thing about my mom always told me that the reason that women can have more than one baby is because you forget pain. So I've forgotten the pain, probably to my own detriment. If I had to go back there, I'd probably be like, damn it, why did I forget how shit this is? No, I've got unfinished business. So who knows where things will take me and where I'll end up in this life. But if I ever got the call, I would say yes in an instant. I definitely have stuff I still need to do. And I've got some revenge to exact.
Well, in our off-season content, we are going to be doing a cast for Survivor South Africa All-Stars because we believe that it's probably 2 seasons away. Season 10 would be the perfect opportunity to bring an All-Star season back. So you've got one half of the Survivor World Cup wide crew in your side to try and see if we can get you on that cast assessment moving forward.
Who else do I need to bribe?
I'll talk to Riley. I'll talk to Riley. It's been great having you on the show. It's been great talking to you about Survivor South Africa Immunity Island. What's next for you? Is there anything that you would like to plug or let people know about? Anything that I could put in the description afterwards where people can go follow you? I'll make sure to put Instagram and Twitter and all those things on there. But what else do you have going on at the moment that you would want to plug, or is it just back to normal?
I wish I had stuff to plug. I honestly haven't. Chris, I've worked so hard. I don't have time for anything else. But I've got something in the pipeline. It's just taking longer than I would like because I've been so busy. But I'll chat to you offline. I'll get your contact details and I'll share it with you when the time comes. So hopefully it will be very exciting, at least for me.
Awesome. Well, if you ever want to come back on the show to talk about that and talk a little bit more about the things that we couldn't dive into in this specific interview, let's make it happen in the off season because it's going to probably be another year or two. I don't know when the next season comes back, but for Survivor South Africa, but we'd be more than happy to have you back on the show. Amy, it's been great having you on the show. Please stay in touch.
Thanks,
let me know
Chris.
about that and we'll talk again. And for everybody listening and that got to this part of the interview, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We are starting to get pretty close to 1,000 subscribers on the channel, which is amazing because this is our first year doing the podcast, and it's been a lot of fun doing it. We've got a special coming up where we will have a Survivor South Africa alum, US Survivor alum, and an Australian Survivor alum all on the same podcast where they will be team captains and they will pick their own hypothetical teams for Survivor International if that was ever to happen. So look out for that. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks that will be dropping as well. If you've been listening to here, thanks very much and goodbye.